So thank you for your time. I want to, if you all could help me welcome Gloria, please. So again, thank you. So this is really about 45 minutes to an hour of you sharing your story with all of these guys, being able to talk about where you started in the business, what got you into the business, what attributed to your successes, some things maybe you would do differently, and then where you're at today and where you're going to go in the future. So let's start at way back in the beginning and tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Where I'm from, real estate-wise?
No, where you're from in your life. This is about Gloria and her life.
Okay. I was born actually in Grandview, but we moved to Hilliard when I was in elementary school, so pretty much raised my life in Hilliard, and that's where my kids grew up as well.
And now you were always here in Central Ohio, or did you go to school somewhere? Did you leave for college?
So when I was at Ohio State, a freshman, I met my husband, and he was on scholarship at UC. And I was not on scholarship, so only one of us could go to school, and his was free and mine wasn't. So we moved to Cincinnati, and he continued schooling there.
What was he on scholarship for?
Football.
Football.
Yeah.
Oh, school.
Not smarts.
I didn't say that. What was your first job?
Oh, my God. You did not tell me you were going to ask that. I was an ad-scat skater.
A what?
An ad-scat skater.
I have no clue what that is.
So, right, nobody does. So there was a company in town run by a guy, why I remember his name, I don't know. His name was Bobby Porto, and he ran this company, and what they did was they would hand out coupons and flyers at lunchtime downtown, and you had to hit a certain number. And so what they did, looking back now, it's pretty sexist, but we wore short shorts, and we skated around downtown in the morning when people were coming into work, and at lunch when they were going to lunch, and handed out these coupons and flyers. And that's how we got paid. Is that crazy? And we would get called to go do like special shows, and we would go down to WNCI and do stupid stuff. And that was along the time frame of Flashdance. Remember when the cop danced with the girl in the middle of the street? So they had us on the news, like do a little clip of it. So yeah, that doesn't make it on my resume though.
Were you good at it?
Sadly, yes.
So how long have you been in real estate?
I got licensed in April of '96.
What made you choose real estate?
I love houses and people. No, I had always wanted to get into it, and I had to wait until my son was old enough to kind of sit in the car and wait for me. And so I looked into it quite a few times, and then finally, I don't know what interested me in it. It just seemed to always be there, but I had to wait till he was old enough to go do it because my husband traveled all the time.
Where did you start?
I started at a fantastic company called King Thompson. It was, those of you that are new may not have heard of it, but it was a pretty boutique type brokerage, but it was a big brokerage, and it was a pretty cool brokerage. And then it was bought out by Coldwell Banker and became what's now known as Coldwell Banker King Thompson.
So let's talk about that early time in your career, how you got started at a really, what did you do to begin building your business?
We had really great mentors back then, and our office was such an amazing office. We had some great people that would just help you along the way, and I didn't have any great formula. I'm going to be honest. I just tripped into business, so as you and I have talked, I suck at open houses, so everybody would throw you out and go do open houses. I stink, so that didn't work for me, but I really think that I just hustled and kind of made it work.
Yeah. Tell us, you told me the other day you were sharing some stories about that time you had in the early times at, I don't know if it was Coldwell Banker at that point, but you were working with some people, like Sean and some others, and you had some really good experience there. Can you share some of that?
Yeah, so our office, like I said, was second to none. There were a lot of people that were in that office that we've since split, but it was such an incredible core. If we could put everybody back together, it would be so dominant. Sean Carpenter was in there, Gretchen McKay, Kathy Shiflett, Connie Anzuini, Jesse Hogue, Rick Starr. It was just a Anita Graves, Caroline Schroyer. It was just a fantastic group of people, and we all kind of came into it together over a span of a couple years, and everybody just kind of worked together, and it was really awesome. Because our office was really very strong before we came into it, so there was already people that were very, very successful, and then there were all of us. So we kind of formed our own little band of misfit toys and helped each other out.
Tell me a good story from then.
So
I know you're full of stories.
So my dad, those of you that have met me know that my dad, I think, is the most awesome person in the world, and he passed away. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have a great mentor that's also a friend, that knows what you need before you even know what you need. So when he passed away, I shut down completely. I didn't go to work. There were days I didn't get out of bed. I didn't do anything. And it was probably about, 4 to 5 months into this black hole I was in. And the way our house was, it was one of those doors that had the skylights on the side, and you can see all the way clear back to the back of my house. And so I was sitting in the chair in the back of the house, and the doorbell rings, and I look, and it's Sean standing at the door looking at me, so I can't, hit the deck because he's already seen me. And I don't know if Sean even remembers this, but it was a turning point for me. And so I had to go to the door, and he came in, and I looked a hot mess. And he basically just said, okay, you've done this long enough. You've licked your wounds. Your dad wouldn't want you to do this, and I expect you to be showered and show up to work tomorrow. And that's what I needed. And so anyway, it's important to have somebody around you that knows what you need when you don't know what you need, and is strong enough that you respect them enough that you don't want to let them down.
Have you been able to do that and play that role in other, maybe not just necessarily agents' lives, but in other people's lives, looking back on that?
I'd like to think so.
She has? Yeah.
Quit making soap and get in here.
Well, it's important, right? It's important to learn from being able to look back and put those pieces together and say, how can I do that for someone else?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how long then were you with Coldwell Banker?
Oh my gosh. Caldwell Banker and King Thompson combined, I think it was just under 12 years. Yeah.
So then what?
I left there. I thought I was going to go manage an office for HER, and I took out a friend of mine that was at Keller Williams to tell him I was doing that because he had been recruiting me. And he said, no way, and he made a position for me at Keller Williams to go and be their productivity coach. So I went there and was there for a little over 3 years and stayed there. And that really didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, so I went back into sales. You get to the point where you just want to depend on yourself and not on others. And when I was coaching, I was depending on others' successes, the way the pay structure was. So I went back into sales.
What was the lesson there for you?
If it sounds too good to be true, it is. No, actually, I think the lesson was that I need to depend on myself. I know what I'm doing, and I just need to depend on myself.
So tell us about the HER years. You went to HER, and you were there for how long?
A long time. So I went into sales at HER, and then they opened an office in Worthington, which my wonderful Haley is left there still. And we opened a wonderful office in downtown Worthington, and I loved it, and we had a great time. And I've said on more than one occasions that I think that had I stayed there, I'd still be there. But they took me to corporate, and I'm not really a corporate person. I'm more of a hands-on person. So I recognized that pretty quickly and found my way out the door.
What do you like to do? What are you really good at?
Saving animals.
It correlates well to real estate.
Yeah, it does. Saving animals I'm really good at and very passionate about. But I'm very passionate about our industry and our business. And I think that our business and our industry are two different things, and I'm passionate about both of them.
Can you talk about that? Talk about why you say that they're two different things. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that our business is what we do every day. Our industry is what we work in, right? And our industry is bigger than just our jobs and our business. Our industry is our associations, it's our lobbying efforts, it's the legal side of it, which a lot of people, they don't want to get into politics, they don't want to get into the legalities of it. But without people fighting for legislation that protects us, we would all be in a world of hurt, as would our customers. So I'm passionate about that as well.
When did you really start getting involved on that side of the industry? You're very active. So I want to talk a little bit about the beginnings of that, where that group came out of, and what you're doing with that now.
So literally the minute I got licensed, our manager at the time was a guy named Captain Bob Kidwell. And when you walked into his office because you got licensed, he just told you, you're going to the board and you're going to get on a committee. And I didn't know there was an option not to. So we went, and then there was this thing called the Corpac auction. I got licensed in April, and that May I was at the Corpac auction. I had no idea what Corpac was. So again, I think it goes back to mentorship and people pushing you into things and leading you, and it just kind of grew from there. So I think if I had to take it all the way back to, it would be him that got me and started with Corpac.
Can you talk about the rest of your involvement and how that led to other things? Because I know that you're involved in a lot of different levels at this point.
Yeah, so when I left HER and I decided I'm very blessed. So a lot of people ask me, like, why do you waste your time going to NAR stuff? Why do you waste your time going to OAR stuff? And I have to tell you, we get a lot of business out of it, a lot of business. But that's not really the main reason why we do it. That's kind of a nice side benefit to it. But again, we're there fighting for, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but NAR is the only voice for private property rights on the Hill. There's nobody else that goes and fights for homeowners, business owners. It's NAR. So that kind of means a lot to me. My family came over here from Cuba, and they lost everything. They didn't have anybody fighting for them. So that's pretty near and dear. I'm totally not answering your question.
You totally are. This is I want you to, this is it. Yeah, go.
But so when I wanted to leave HER, I looked around at what the options were that were out there. And I actually did go back and talk to Sean about going back to Coldwell Banker because it is family there. And I think that's another thing that's important too. When you leave a company, don't burn your bridge because you never know when you might want to go back, right? And Coldwell Banker to me is still family. It's a fantastic group of people. But the fit wasn't right for me to go back there. I really wanted something I could grow with. And they were pretty well, their bench strength was pretty tight without me being part of that. So I started looking around at people that I knew wanted to come to Columbus but hadn't been here yet, and that's how we reached out to Berkshire Hathaway to have them come here. So, and again, I wouldn't have known them if I didn't do what I do with NAR and OAR.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on right now with some of the legislation with the licensing? I know you're really active with that, and
Yeah.
you've been.
That's a hot topic. So
Good.
it's House Bill 532. Have you guys all heard about this? Okay. So House Bill 532 has a lot of different layers to the onion. Only one part of it seems to be what everybody wants to argue about and discuss, which is the online licensing portion of it. But it has a lot of other things too. It has things in it. It came from a task force. This started back in 2011, so it's not something they just threw out there. But the online portion of it, what we're fighting is, and again, it's a step process. Right now, we all know that you can take your CE online, and basically you can do 12 hours in an hour, because you're just clicking through. We want to change that, but we also need to change how we get our licensing first, so that we can do everything online. Keith, let me ask you a question. You said you're licensed in Florida. Did you go sit through the classes down there? Online. Do you feel like you're less of an agent because you took your license? So there's a lot of people like Keith. There's a lot of people that are professionals that sit in jobs that would like to go into real estate. I'm so tired of hearing people say, we want to raise the bar, we want to raise the bar. I'm not really sure. You still have to pass the same test. We all went to Hondros probably. And I don't know about you, but the classes I got, and I'm not slamming Hondros, I'm just slamming the process in and of itself. None of us were ready to go out and sell real estate from the classes that we took. That's not raising the bar, right? So if we can control what is being taught because it's online and it's not a click through. Have any of you taken online courses that are college level? Anybody in here? They're not easy because when I take a college course where I have to show up, I can walk into the back of the room and that's my attendance, right? But online courses, when they're college level courses, which is what these courses would be, you have to have engagement so that they know that you basically showed up. There's a lot more to it. Online courses are a lot more difficult than sitting in the back of the room, playing on your phone, being on Facebook, reading the newspaper, doing all those things that we've all seen happen when you sit in a classroom at Hondros and take a course. So we think that raising the bar is allowing professionals who don't want to take 3 weeks off, because they can't, because they're professionals, to go sit in a classroom. We also want to make sure that we're reaching out to the people that don't live near a Hondros. There's people in Chillicothe, there's people all across the state that don't want to drive 2.5 hours to get to classrooms. So we really think that that is raising the bar. They still have to pass the same test, and it allows us to more control the content versus what's out there right now. You know, when you sit in these courses that are out there right now, it's really human nature to sit up there and talk about your company, basically. You've all seen it. It doesn't matter how much they tell you you're not going to be recruited. You know you're recruited when you're sitting in these classes. With the online portion of it, that can't happen. We are controlling the content of what's going on there. So I feel pretty strongly about it. The second part of that is that, which goes into licensing, and I think is where you wanted me to get. And I'm sorry, because poor Cole gets thrown under the bus every time this conversation comes up.
He's used to it.
Yeah. So Cole's my son. He's been licensed for 3 years. The way that years ago somebody had a great idea that to be a broker, to raise the bar to be a broker, you had to have a college degree. On paper, that sounds like a great idea, right? But nowhere along the line was there anything that was implemented in lieu of. So what they did is anybody that was a broker up until that point was grandfathered in. But anybody after that had to have a college degree. So I've tried doing the online courses, but as I said, I know firsthand it takes a lot of time. You're writing a lot of papers, a lot of interaction. So here's my question to you. Cole graduated from Ohio State. He's brilliant, he's smart, he's mine, so I can say that. Cole can sit for his broker's license tomorrow, and I can't. Is that really raising the bar? And I don't think that it is. So I think that we can't do things in black and white. We need to take different things into consideration when we're passing some of these regulations.
Thank you for that. Sorry, Cole.
Sorry, and that is kind of my soapbox, so sorry.
No, not at all. Thank you for that. Do we have any questions? Have you guys done anything? Go ahead, Amy.
So is there an in lieu of portion that you are proposing, or
Not yet. We have talked to the commission, but this particular legislation that came out, what it does do is that, for example, if all of you are brokers right now and you're in a brokerage, you can't advertise that you're a broker because your sole broker is the one that has liability for anything that happens within that company. With this new legislation, there are different ways that you can use your broker's license and advertise it without having to have it in escrow, but still have what's called your principal broker. So a Coldwell banker, Jerry White, can be the principal broker, so to speak, but he could have 85 brokers on his, that work for his company. They're not liability. They're not taking on any of the liability, but they can say, I've got my broker's license. So we have to get past this, and then that's the next thing that we're going to be fighting. We just knew it was too much to bite off. We've already made enough people angry with the online portion of it. So we'll wait until we hopefully get this passed. It did pass the House. Now we have to get it past the Senate, and then we'll start making people mad going after the other portion of it.
Atta girl. Any other questions right now?
I'm hoping that since you guys have heard that side of it, and if you have questions about it, please come and talk to me about it. But I really want you guys to be foot soldiers. If you hear people spewing about how bad it's going to be for us to do online, I don't know if anybody reads the Dispatch anymore. A lot of people don't. But, you know, there was an article in there the other day about, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why Hondros is against this legislation, right? They have between 65 and 80% of the market of people that are getting their real estate licenses. Of course, they're going to be against it, which is kind of silly if you ask me, because they're that far ahead of the curve. They could still hit the ground running with online licensing and still come out ahead, but I think it's kind of a closed mind, keep people out.
Or other than the Hondros, which makes sense, I'm also upset about this is the brokerages that think it's just going to make more competition, it's going to be easier for an agent to get in business. Is it the, 35,000 members of OAR? There's 300,000 home buyers a year in the state of Ohio that need good representation. Who are the people that?
There's one large broker in town that is very verbally against it, very vocal, I should say, against it. And they say the same thing Hondros does, that they think that it's lowering the bar. I personally think they just haven't really read the legislation, because the argument that I hear is that, oh, tomorrow I can go and open a real estate school, and for $19.99 you can take your test. Okay, well, A, that's a terrible business model. Why would you do that? But B, no, that's not what the legislation says at all. Like, you still have to take, Ohio would be the only state that would require that you have to take college level courses to get your license. No other state in the country requires that. Part of their big problem is they want it for credit. That's the only argument, is they want you to have to take it for credit. Well, somebody like a Cole doesn't need the credit hours, so why would I pay extra to take? Why would he pay extra to take it with credit hours versus paying the lesser fee? It's the same course, whether I want the credit hours or not. The curriculum's going to be the same, right? So that's their argument, and I think they just really haven't read the legislation. But I think when you're so against something, you kind of close off listening to what might be common sense. Yes.
I would say, I'm a person who wants to know what the bill is all about. So I contacted our local board,
Mm-hmm.
which I support the political action committee, and I mail it at home, in the office, at the local association, in our area and stuff. I tell them, this is your right. You need to get out there, you need to help it, you need to support it. It keeps you working, it keeps buyers buying.
Yep.
But when I called them this time, well, there's a lot of different views on that. There were people from all over, all different state, cities, that sat on this committee forever.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so if you have feelings about that, one way or the other, we'd be happy to, or you can share it with. And that was the support I got, and I've been paying dues for a long time.
When you called to ask about the legislation, can I ask what your local board is? Columbus? So Columbus is walking a fine line with this, because the broker that is so against this is one of their largest members. So they're walking a fine line to try to tell people to educate themselves on it. And I'm sorry that's the answer you got. They don't want to fall on one side or the other, because it is a large broker that is a member of theirs. But I would be happy to get you any information you want on the legislation.
Can you pay somebody to have that position to represent me with the government? Right? I should be able to get an answer. Don't you think?
Yeah, but did you want to add on to that?
Well, since it's such a big push by OAR, could they call OAR in lieu of the local boards? Because it's really their legislation that they're pushing.
Right. So, yeah, so our lobbyists at the state level, Paul Glass and Scott Williams, they are fantastic. And they could explain it to you. Yes, I wish that the board would absolutely, or our association would come out 100% in favor of it. I do know they're in favor of it. I think that I think that maybe they just don't want to alienate people by expressing an opinion on the phone. But if you called and talked to the GAD, which is Brent Swander, I would hope that he would give you more information himself. Do you know who you spoke to, who the individual was? I'm sorry? Was it Brent? Okay. Okay. I'm sorry you got that answer.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about your business today. Let's talk about why you chose Berkshire and, kind of what you're doing, who you're working with, that sort of thing.
So we chose Berkshire because, out of things that you do that are a mistake, you pull something out of it, right? And when I did training and coaching at Keller Williams, I realized that I really enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it so much that I completely wanted to leave my sales aside. So management became something that was really fulfilling for me. And I wanted something that I could grow into. Our Berkshire is the largest one in the state, but smallest in Columbus, which for me is a great spot to be in because as the growth goes, obviously, the opportunity is there for me to grow as well. So,
What did you like about them that, besides the opportunity for growth, what else did you like about them in particular? From maybe it's the brand, maybe it's technology, maybe what kind of services they offer that you're getting value out of?
I liked the brand a lot. It was a different brand, and Warren Buffett, you can't go wrong with him, I don't think. So I liked that, and our particular franchise or brokerage has really great technology. So that is something that really intrigued us.
What's it like working with family?
Cole? It's actually great. You'd have to ask him how he feels about it. It's actually great. I was raised in a family that all worked together, so it's not something that's really odd to us. But for he and I, it works really well because he's very much an introvert, and we laugh about it, and I'm not. And so we laugh because he'd rather strip down naked and light himself on fire than go and do some of the stuff I do. And some of the stuff he does behind the scenes, I'd rather poke my eyes out. So it's a nice balance.
So can we talk a little bit about your business today? Is it referral based? What kind of, and you don't have to talk about specifics, but what kind of general marketing are you doing, that sort of thing?
So 100% of our business comes from, I take that back, probably 90%, 95%, comes from referrals of some sort, whether it's from our relocation company, or a relocation department, which is a small piece of it. A lot of relocation comes from, like I said, our people that we know across the state and across the country. With my involvement with that, we get a lot of referrals from that. The only percentage of business that we get from marketing, and I'm going to tell you guys this, and nobody's going to do it, but we tell people all the time, and it works. And we do just listed, just sold cards, but we don't. We do them very specifically. We've changed the wordings on the cards so that it's our wording. And we are actually upset if we don't get a call off of every mailing, at least one call off of every mailing that we do. That is the only marketing that we do. Other than that, it's all referral-based and Sphere.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit the other day, and the first words out of my mouth, of course, were, "I hate postcards." But I like the way you're doing it with the targeting. And are you doing anything on Facebook?
We do Facebook ads, and that's Cole's department. So you'd have to ask him what all we're doing with that. That's something I've handed off to him, and he does it very well. I do just the basic Facebook stuff as far as pumping up my clients, but he does the ad part of it.
How are you using Facebook specifically, but social media in like a broader sense for your business?
So I think it has to do with his age, but he does not do much on Facebook, and I, on the other hand, do a lot on it. And it's not always looking for business, right? We all see agents that as soon as somebody says, bless you, somebody says, I'm having a baby. Oh, do you need a house? I just, no. But But we do pay attention. It's kind of, and you and I had this discussion, I do a lot of listening on Facebook and listening for changes that might be coming down the road for somebody, interaction. There's a lot of interaction that I do on Facebook, and it just kind of keeps you top of mind. Years ago, I used to have a bench ad with my face on it, and people would say, I see your face everywhere. No, you don't. You see it one place, but you just drive by it a lot, you know? So I think Facebook is kind of that way. I'm constantly engaging with people and engaging with them, not at them. So
listening is one of the do's, right, on social and on Facebook. What are some of the don'ts?
I have so I don't know. This is just my opinion, but we have made the decision. We take ourselves out of the equation. For us, it's never about us. It's always about the client. So whenever you see us post a picture at a closing or anything, it's always about the client, and the story is always the client's. It's not about us. You'll never see us talking about it's our payday, or you'll never see us, we don't do the selfie thing with the client. It is always about them. But that's just my opinion, and it's worked well with us so far. So we always make it about them. We ask them if we can tag them. We don't just tag them. A lot of times they'll tag themselves, and then it gets shared that way. But we just try to have fun with it based on their story.
If you were a newer agent starting today, and you probably have good reference for this working so closely with Cole, what suggestions would you have for them beginning their business?
Go work with Sean Carpenter. No. He is fantastic. I think if I were a new agent today, I would tell you to go find somebody you could mentor. And that's not always the highest hitter. It's not always the person that produces the most. And you can't pick them right away. I would suggest that you go into your office and you hang out. First of all, go into your office. You're never going to generate business just sitting at home in your pajamas. Go into your office. I know that's archaic, but it works. Quit making soap. Go into the office. I know. So I would say go into the office and then start watching for people that you like how they do business. If it feels like somebody, again, I've said it, I'll say it again, I suck at open houses. So if I'm sitting in the office and I hear somebody that all their business comes from open houses, that's not going to be the person that I want to shadow. I know they say to challenge what you're not good at, but that's just not going to work for me. So pick somebody that you like how they do business and then ask them if you can shadow them. What can you do for them? How can you help them? And if you come from contribution, they're going to give you information, and you are going to learn just from being there and being with them.
Where do you see your business going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see myself getting, if it's possible, more involved at the state and national level. But Cole and I have talked about also, growing our team. Not really as much numbers-wise, but it's hard because we want people that do business like we do business, but that don't mirror our strengths, right? We want somebody that brings something else to the table, and that's kind of a hard fit to find. So I do see us growing our team so that it does enable me to go and do more stuff state and nationally.
So the byproduct of growing your team is allowing you to do more outside of the day-to-day selling?
No, I love the day-to-day selling, but it allows the team to continue to run and actually, quite frankly, gives Cole some relief when I'm gone, because right now he is treading water when I go out of town. So to have somebody else to help carry that load would be fantastic. And it's a win-win. I mean, we wouldn't just, you know what I mean? It's got to be a balance for that person as well.
Yeah, for sure. Do you see the brand? Do you see the am I saying it incorrectly when I say
Berkshire.
Berkshire? I say Berkshire. It's Berkshire.
Yeah.
Berkshire. Do you see the brand growing in Central Ohio?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in its infancy, so yeah, it will absolutely grow. They're just it's not a quick grow. It's more of an organic grow, and we kind of talked about this the other day too. We're getting ready to open an office in the Northwest Quadrant, and we can't release where that is yet because there's a lot of competition. but I can't, I was hoping today would be where we can announce it, but we can't. But it's funny because, everybody, managers that I talk to all want to go after these top producers, and that's not really what we want. We really want to grow it with people that are doing, that 1 to 3 million, maybe 4 million. And you bring them in and they're part of your team and everybody kind of grows together. And I think that increases camaraderie. And that's something that came from when we all grew up in the business together. So it all goes back to that, right? I mean, everything we do always goes back to that. Because we all grew together when we were back at King Thompson and then into Coldwell Banker, we were all always willing to share. Nobody was better than anybody else. You could go to anybody's door and they'd help you. So I think that forms a bond if everybody's growing together versus somebody comes in doing 15 million and wants to own the joint, like no.
Yeah, that leads into the next question was going to be, which is how important is it for you to surround yourself with good people, whether they're their colleagues or even vendor partners?
Oh my gosh, it's so important. I mean, you're judged by the company you keep, so, yeah.
Oh, you're in trouble today. Do we have any other questions? Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's talk 20 years in business. Tell us something that you're still doing to grow your business that you've done all 20 years, and tell us something new that you've added to your business that you're excited about. What are the tried and true things that you've done year in, year out in those early days? What's new that you've added to your business to grow your business?
I think what's tried and true is that just maintaining relationships. And, when you get away from that, my numbers slip and I can see it doing that. So it's making the time to make relationships and maintain them. And I'm not a numbers person. I'm not driven by the numbers. I'm driven by the people. And I feel like if I do the people, the numbers will come. So when Sean was coaching me, he'd get so, like, but you have to have numbers. And I was like, I know, but I do it backwards. But anyway, it would be fun because I'd check off the numbers and go in and meet with them. And we had another number. So that's my tried and true that I've always gone with. Something new, I don't know that we're doing anything new. I mean, I think we evolve and we do all the, you hear the latest and greatest app and you try it. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But for us, it always comes back down to the relationship. So if an app can help me maintain a relationship, that's great. We beat ourselves up. I do anyway. It's like, oh my God, I'm not on Instagram, and I have a name on, or I have I have an account, but there's one picture. and it was a picture I put when we were in Dayton at bar camp. And then, Snapchat. I haven't even gotten into Snapchat. But Facebook works really well for me, so I have to give myself that pass that, I can't be the master of all, so maybe when I have time, we'll try some of the new things, but.
Social media overload,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of storytelling?
So we think that everybody has a story, right? Some stories are happier than others, but as hokey as it sounds, people invite us into their stories and we become part of their stories. And we can either be the villain, hopefully not, or we can help be their hero through that time that they're going through, whether it's a good time or a bad time. So I think that every real estate transaction, we don't view it as a transaction. It's part of their story and their life story. And sometimes I think we lose sight of that and we look at just the money and the deal, and but this is people's stories. It's their lives. So that's a big thing for us.
Yeah, for sure. People don't belong in funnels,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Any other questions? So I know that you have been super sick I offered to take chicken soup over to you yesterday. Heather sent me a message. She's at the Grateful Dead today and said, you better send her chicken, you go take her chicken soup. So I know that you weren't feeling well today, so I thank you for your time in doing this, and I think there's a lot of value in your thoughts and your actions and just being able to share those with everyone here today. If we have any other questions, otherwise I'm going to let Gloria off the hook and invite you all to join us at bar 145 here in a few minutes. We have to be out of here by 5. They're going to kick me out on the curb then.
If I can leave you guys with just some parting
Thank you.
thoughts, though. don't judge what you're doing against everybody else. Pick what works for you. Everything isn't going to work for you. And just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean that you suck as a realtor. It just means it doesn't work for you. So instead of, I spent years trying to do the things I saw other agents do, and I spun my wheels a lot and compared myself to them a lot. And agents that started after me who, rose very quickly, and you get into that victim mentality of figuring out, well, they only did that because of this. Pick what works for you. And whatever doesn't work, it's okay to not do it. But whatever does work, do that really well. I think we get caught up too often in trying to do everything and doing what you see everybody else doing. And I think that's really dangerous. You hear so many people trying so many different things, which is fine to try new things, but don't forget the old things that have worked for you.
Well, thank you again very much. I thought that was a great point to take us out on. And if you all could help me again, thank Gloria for joining us today.